Okay, good evening, councillors, staff members, members of the public. Welcome to this official council meeting. I declare it open at 5:30, both for those who are joining us here, and this meeting is being live streamed as well. So for those joining us online, also welcome. Microphones are working this week, so we should be able to all hear us. In opening the meeting, I do want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Noongar Wadani people, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal community and to their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. Councillors, just one announcement from me. As we discussed at our last workshop when we talked about some of the meeting procedures, in our standing orders, standing is only ever mentioned once, and that is in the title. There is no obligation for members to stand, including our staff. So going forward, and this is based on some community feedback on hearing from speakers, we won't be required to stand when debating. We're going to trial this. If you want to get my attention to move and motion, I'd still suggest you stand for that part, but then going into debate and discussion, you may remain seated. This is to ensure we can all hear what is being said and those joining online is being said as well. So big changes here. We have received one apology from Councillor Brown, and the rest of us are here. Thank you. The previous declarations of interest were received last week, and that is from Councillor Gassop is a proximity interest on 10.4.2. So Councillor Gassop will leave the room for that item. Councillor Turner has an impartial interest in 10.4.2, so will remain in the room. Is there any other declarations of interest? Thank you. We have received some public questions for this week, and there are some responses taken on notice from those ones. I'll ask those members. I haven't actually seen Marie. Is Marie? Oh, here she is. Hello, Marie. Come and join us. Thank you, Marie. Your questions first, and I'll get you to ask those questions first, and then I will provide some responses. But if you ask all three of them, we'll provide those responses after that. Oh, before you do, we just need a handheld mic because that microphone isn't working. We fixed the other one, so the mic should be next to the computer on the desktop there. Yep, perfect. So just so we can ensure they're heard online as well, please make sure you use those. And yeah, as I said, I'll get you to ask your questions. It is. Thank you, Marie.
Marie Goulden, 21 Pierce Road, Australind. Good evening, Mayor McGuill and councillors. Question 1. While emergency shelter funding is primarily a state government responsibility, the Bunbury City Council's responses appears hesitant to take an active role in homelessness advocacy. Over the past year, there has been a marked rise in tents, makeshift shelters and individuals living in cars throughout the Bunbury region, largely due to the shortage of affordable rental properties. It is within the Council's remit to engage proactively with community services, stakeholders and existing providers to gain a clearer grasp of the urgent need for emergency accommodation in Bunbury. The My Home model currently underway in Mandurah and Albany stands as a testament to the progress achievable through collaboration between local councils and service groups. Therefore, my question is, what specific actions will the Bunbury councillors undertake to work alongside community services and stakeholders, ensuring that a crisis shelter is advanced rather than postponed? Question
Keep asking
2.
your questions. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. I acknowledge that the city is not empowered to mandate the use of private properties or activate state-owned buildings. However, many local governments take proactive steps by conducting assessments of vacant or underutilised buildings, not to compel their use, but to identify opportunities, initiate conversations with owners, and advocate for activation at the state level. My question is, will the city commit to mapping potential sites, engaging with relevant agencies and identifying any buildings, whether public or private, that could be suitable for crisis accommodation if partnerships or agreements can be established? An excellent example of this approach is Rob Praderland's Housing All Australians initiative. Question 3. Witnessing the growing number of people experiencing homelessness in Bunbury each day, it's hard not to feel despair. However, this is an urgent call to action, and 2026 must be the year where meaningful change occurs. With new statistics emerging daily, and Anglicare WA recently urging the community to contact their local MPs, it's clear that public awareness and advocacy are rising. What will it take our governments and councils to transition from passive routine planning to genuine crisis intervention? What steps will Bunbury councillors take to shift the local narrative from "it's not our job" to "it's our community", and actively engage in solutions that address homelessness head on? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Marie. I'll ask you to take a seat. I will respond to that. There are some quite lengthy responses here, so we'll make sure these are responded or written to you as well as appearing in the minutes, but I'll ask you to take a seat. Thank you. So in response to question 1, the City does respectfully note that some of the assertions within this question do not accurately reflect our position or actions. The City has not been hesitant. As outlined in some of the previous responses to questions, and as detailed in the comprehensive report, which was detailed to Council on the 29th of July 2025, and we're happy to provide that report back to you again. But the City has been doing, and not limited to, meeting directly with the Minister for Housing and Homelessness, made formal written representation to State Government, established a Housing Solution to Homelessness Working Group, actively participated in State Government-led Housing First groups and regional homelessness forums, collaborated with funded service providers on an ongoing basis, undertaken a review of a city-owned land for housing opportunities, engaged with State Government on state-owned land development, and then you referenced a couple of other shires that are doing things. I personally have met with some of those representatives to talk about those opportunities as well. This is a sustained active engagement within our local government capacity. We do acknowledge the visible increase in rough sleepers and the pressures caused by housing affordability challenges, and we do share that community's concern. However, it is important that a public discussion on the issue accurately reflects the significant advocacy and the collaborative work the City has undertaken and the respective roles that we as the local government and State Government have. So in response to your question 2, a number of the suggestions you've made were already underway. As outlined again in that report, the 29th of July 2025, and again happy to provide that report back to you with the answer to this, potentially with some updates in that as well. But we have undertaken a comprehensive review of city-owned land holdings, mapping out a path for deconstraining various land parcels for potential development. We've engaged with private developers, investor groups and not-for-profit organisations as part of a holistic approach to housing solutions. And we've actively engaged with the State Government regarding opportunities associated with state-owned land within Bunbury, and that will continue. The City is not in a position to order or map privately owned buildings for potential crisis accommodation use. This raises significant property rights, privacy and resource allocation considerations. However, the City remains open to conversations with all property owners, service providers or organisations that identify specific opportunities and seek City support in facilitating those partnerships. The City will continue in its current work identifying suitable City and state-owned land opportunities, engaging with potential partners and advocating for the State Government. The City welcomes approaches from the organisations, property owners or service providers with specific proposals for crisis accommodation partnerships. And in terms of question 3, again, we want to correct some of the mischaracterisations within that question. At no point, this City or Council has implied that homelessness is not our job. This phrase has never appeared in any of our Council resolutions, our City responses or any public statements we have made. And we do ask that that position not be misrepresentation in public forums. Our position has been very clear that homelessness is a community issue and the City takes that seriously. The City has an important advocacy and coordination role within our local government capacity, and funding and delivery of emergency accommodation and homelessness service is, though, a responsibility of the State Government. These are not the same thing, though, as suggesting we've said it's not our job. The City actions that we've outlined before is active engagement, not passive planning. We have had direct ministerial advocacy. We have formal written representations to the State Government. We have established a dedicated housing solutions working group. We have ongoing collaborations with funded service providers. We participate in state-led housing first working groups. We've done a comprehensive review of city-owned land for housing opportunities. We engage with State Government, private developers and not-for-profit organisations on housing solutions, and we support a number of local stakeholders in their local approaches. The City notes that Anglicare WA's call for community members to contact their local MPs reinforces the City's consistent message. The State Government holds the funding levers and service delivery responsibilities for emergency accommodation. The City has been making exactly this case throughout our advocacy roles. The City shares the community concern about homelessness in Bunbury. We continue to advocate strongly, collaborate with service providers and work within our capacity to support solutions. We also welcome collaborative approaches, constructive engagement and community advocates working towards the same goal. So a fair bit in those responses, Marie, but we will make sure they're provided to you in writing and they'll be appearing in the minutes of next week's council meeting too. Thank you very much for your questions. Courtney Truman, I have a few questions for us also.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors and City of Bunbury staff. Sorry, am I reading all three of the questions?
If you ask all questions, same one. I note that question one has part one and part two, but we'll just tie that into one question. That's fine, and we'll just, if you ask your questions, we'll answer those the same. Give me a moment to get my breath back. Thanks, Courtney.
Yep, thank you. All right, question one. I've got two parts to this. Why were questions that got asked at the annual electors meeting not in the following agenda or agendas up to today? Part two, as per this agenda, on the draft it was page 13, now it is currently page 12. In section 7.1.2, the minutes of the annual meeting of electors held 17th of December 2025 have been circulated. Where is this presented that us ratepayers can view? Question two. Regarding my motion, which is section 10.2.2, if it gets approved, the actions undertaken by the CEO, along with any correspondence or responses, how and when will such correspondence and information get publicly released and published? Question three. This also has two parts. Part one, please advise why the City of Bunbury Council removed the tap at the Sundew Park in Victoria Heights. And part two, will and when will the City of Bunbury Council be reinstalling a tap at the Sundew Park? Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney. I can keep going, CEO, I'm on a roll. CEO was happy to respond, but given he can take the operational one, question three, I can deal with the annual electors meeting questions. So the questions either taken on notice or answered on the night from the annual electors meeting were responded to, and they are included in the minutes of that meeting. The standard process is that the minutes of the annual electors meeting, obviously the questions are responded in those minutes, not in our OCM minutes, which will have the questions from the last OCM. The responses to those questions are included in the minutes, as I just said. Tonight's agenda includes confirmation of our minutes from the annual electors meeting, the substantive matter arising from the elected members, so your motion, for example, that is presented in a separate agenda in this OCM because that is an item to deal with, where the minutes appear in the minutes. These minutes are available on the annual electors meeting of electors. These are available on our website, and if you have any difficulty locating those minutes, then city staff are happy to assist you, but they are all online. Thank you. Question two. So this item that you're referring to is for consideration for this evening. It would not be appropriate to preempt our council decisions and any specific form that they may be resolved or adopted. But what I can assure you is that regardless of what council resolves tonight, any actions undertaken by city staff as a result of a council resolution are reported back to the council through the standard council processes. Outcomes relating to council resolutions are captured in the council agendas and minutes, which are publicly available in the city's website. As the mover of that particular annual electors meeting though, we're more than happy to provide any relevant correspondence directly to you as progresses. And we've previously had questions in this time, in public question time, for members to release letters or correspondence we've had with various ministers, and I'm more than happy to do that. You can email me at any time to ask for any of those correspondence and we'll be supplying those. It's an operational question, so we might give our CEO an opportunity. You can take the nice easy answer for response for question three, CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. It's good to save your voice. The tap that was removed was not intended for public use and was connected to the park's irrigation system. It was removed as it did not meet current plumbing compliance requirements. That part two of your question, the publicly accessible water supply will be considered as part of future park upgrades. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. They're the questions that we've received Last week we had questions taken on notice and the responses to Mr Jones's questions are in the agenda in this meeting. Thank you. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Is somebody happy to move that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting? Thank you, Councillor Quain. Second by Councillor Kozisek. Likely to be any debate on that item, councillors? I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And the minutes of the annual meeting of electors. Somebody happy to move that they are a true and accurate record? Councillor Ramesh, seconded by Councillor Gassett. Thank you. Likely to be any debate on this item? I'll put that. Those in favour? That is also carried unanimously. Thank you. I don't believe, councillors, we've received any petition from any elected members. No. We have received 3 forms for deputations. They are in front of us. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Perfect. Councillors, I'll put that we hear those deputations. Those in favour, please indicate. Those again, that's carried. So when we get to each of your items, for those people who are making deputations, we will invite you to the stand. It is 10 minutes in this process. This being an OCM meeting, it's not an opportunity for debate or discussion. You have 10 minutes to basically raise your points why or why not council should support the item you're speaking to. So moving along and to deal with the items for tonight, method with dealing with this particular agenda. Right now, coming out for discussion is item 10.2.2, as there's a deputation, 10.3.1, as we do require some nominations on that for the positions, 10.3.2, we also require nominations on that particular item. 10.4.1 we need to deal with, as Councillor Gassett will be leaving the room for that item. 10.4.3 we have a deputation on that item. 10.5.3 we have a deputation on that item. And 10.5.4, and there is a updated recommendation to what is in the agenda, so we will be pulling that item out for review. Was there any other items in the agenda that anyone would like to discuss? Councillor Cossack? Sure. I did mean 10.4.2, yes. So I'll go through them again. 10.2.2, 10.3.1, 10.3.2, 10.4.2, 10.4.3, 10.5.3 and 10.5.4. Was there any other items that councillors would discuss any further? Councillor Quain.
Is there a deputation on 10.5.5?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody happy to move the remainder are carried on block? Councillor Quain, second by Councillor Broad. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. So all other items in the agenda that weren't called out there have been carried as written in the executive recommendation. This does include item 10.5.5, and I note there's a couple of members of that group here. That item's been carried as written, which will bring a report back to council in April. I know there's some further discussions happening with that as well. So thank you. You're free to stay, but if you want to leave, you can also leave now. If not, we'll continue moving. You're not locked in for the night either. You can stay for a bit and do whatever you want to do. You're not. First item, though, is item 10.2.2, which we have an executive recommendation here, and more importantly, we do have a deputation here. I did miss, sorry, this was Mr. Treloar, I believe. Kyle, was it? I haven't seen Kyle. Is Kyle here? G'day, Kyle. How you going? Come on up. Sorry I didn't get a chance to speak to you before the meeting, Kyle, but your deputation period, you have 10 minutes. So it's not a Q&A forum, or it's an opportunity for you to speak for or against this, and council will consider that afterwards, but the floor is yours. We do, sorry, Kyle, we just need your name and suburb is fine, thank you.
Not a problem. So, yeah, good evening, everyone. Basically, I've sort of missed a couple.
Oh, Kyle, sorry, Mike as well. So just because it's picked up online for anyone watching, the handheld mic.
Handheld mic?
Thank you.
Rob, is that better?
That's good, thank you.
All right, I'm Kyle Treloar. I'm a Bunbury resident. My address is 8 Gower Road in Kerry Park. Good evening, everyone. I'm a little bit late to this topic because of work commitments and everything else, so I'm grateful to be given a chance just to sort of clear the air and sort of lay the land from our point of view and sort of from the fishermen and divers of the Bunbury area that live and breathe this area. So my background is I'm a third generation freediver and spearfisherman. My family's been diving, fishing this area for the last 80, 90 years. We've been through this area, we've seen the ups and downs, we've seen the recovery, the destruction of other areas and stuff. And one thing that I will say about this sort of area, it's very unique it's unique at first glance, and it's very easy to sort of miss if you don't know what areas and what you're looking at. And my background with this area is I've helped out a lot with research. So going back 2-3 years ago, I was involved with helping fisheries with genetic sampling and other various things. I've helped fisheries out with bull shark sampling here as well. I'm active with the Whale Research Institute that's here as well and help out with whale research and everything else. So along with the research I've done, there has been other studies done in this area, particularly on WA jewfish. A Murdoch study that was done recently was tracking jewfish through acoustic monitoring. Where this is important is the fact that our jewfish, which you would have all seen in the news, they've been listed as critical. We've got a 2-year ban on place. We need to ensure that these species survive, thrive and spawn and do their thing. Jewfish emit a very slow decibel range when they spawn and when they're in distress, and our Bunbury area is a known key spawning area. Murdoch carried out successful testing to monitor mass and during spawning via acoustic logging in this area, and it was successful. So in a nutshell, the noise in this of a 10-year construction period of this going through would be detrimental basically to the jewfish spawning. And I've got countless videos, and I welcome anyone to follow or see what I've put up because they're basically everywhere. Everywhere I dive and everything here is documented and filmed. So basically, we are very lucky. Like, if we were to drain Bunbury at the 30-metre line, we'd have like a mecca for snorkeling. Honestly, the coral reef systems that we have here are truly unique, and they're very indifferent to everywhere else on this coast. So if you're not aware, the usual temperature range for corals, particularly on this coast, is 2 to 3 degrees. You would have all seen up at Exmouth quite recently, there's a heat wave going through and it's destructing coral, like there's been a 2-degree heat wave. Well, our coral can actually sustain temperatures from 25 degrees down to 15 every year. So it's resilient coral, and it's super old. Like, this coral is lucky to grow 2 million, if you're lucky. Now, why the wind farms propose a very significant issue with myself is the fact that Bunbury has reef lines that go from Bunbury all the way to Mandurah. We have reef lines of plate coral that go the whole way. So when these guys are going to be running their multiple cables, pile driving and everything else, they're going to have to go through every one of these reef lines. So they know there's impacts on lobster with lobster and rays and stuff with it, but there hasn't been any studies to show noise on actual implications on jewfish, how they spawn and react. So I know from as a diver, when there's high vehicular traffic and areas where they see a lot of boats, the fish move on. So basically, in a nutshell, it needs to be well thought out, and there needs to actually be put more freezing into this and more in-depth studies to go through. Because if you have a look historically for what's on data and out there, you won't find anything. You won't find any reef records. You won't find any coral records. You won't, like when I first started helping out research, they didn't even know they had coral. We didn't even know we had coral out here. So it's an iconic area, and honestly, like if you played it right, you could have a tech divers capital area here. We have a small group of tech divers here, and the best coral doesn't start till 30 metres. And it gets with each depth progression, like I myself, like a mate and I, we're free diving and filming in 45 to 50 metres, documenting all this coral. And what we are seeing is absolutely unbelievable. This untouched coral, these fish species and crayfish have never seen divers before, and we really need to truly understand what's out there, take respect of it, and then think before the motion about what's going to happen and the implications of this. So basically, in my view, I'd rather be seeing, because as far as I'm aware, the EPA that is being done by the offshore companies themselves, this needs to be independently reviewed by someone that's not associated with them, independently done by uni or whatever to prove and go through what's there. Because, yeah, if we don't act and protect what we've got, we're going to lose something truly valuable. And just to rattle off a few iconic corals that we have Terminaria coral, which is a blade coral, which you'll see at Ningaloo. It's the same species found all the way down the coast. We've got Conchinera and Marsha, which is iconic only to the southern stretches of Australia. So basically, yeah, like your southern fringes of southwest and southeast Australia, that's the only place where it's found. And Symphilia wilsoni, which is a brain coral, there's only 2 documented cases as far as I know. I have a third, that one that I found. One's in Whitenest and one's in Geograph Bay. And that coral's not found anywhere else. It's in that zone, and it's only found in WA. Along with our jewfish, bulging groper, blue groper, braccicoid, harlequin fish, you name it, we've got it. So thought I'd just share a bit of knowledge, and like I said, always open for questions, and I'm happy I've got everything there. I've got a GPS loaded with about 50,000 marks of coral and everything else, stacks of videos, stacks of coordinates, all sorts. So thought I'd just share what's there, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for your deputation. So, as indicated, this isn't the forum for Q&A, but we appreciate your information there. And I'm sure if anyone wants to take that up, that they can do. So, councillors, we do have an executive recommendation as printed in front of us at the moment. Would somebody like to move that executive recommendation? Councillor Kozisek, and seconded. Councillor Turner. Is there likely to be any debate on this particular item, councillors? If that's the case, I'm happy to put the executive recommendation as written. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. So that process will start, and back to the mover of the initial annual electors motion, we will happily provide that correspondence to you when it is prepared and written. Thank you. Again, if you're here for that item, feel free to stay. If you would like to go, you may do. Brian's taken the opportunity. Thanks, Brian. Good to see you. 10.3.1. Councillor Kozisek, happy to move. Sure, you want to speak about this? Yes, there is a confidential item on this. So, councillors, I'm happy to just deal with this behind closed doors at the end. There was a confidential attachment which elected members would like to discuss. So we'll move that item back towards the end, and I should have picked that up at the start. My apologies. 10.3.2, councillors, we are looking for appointment for elected members. Does anyone like to nominate to be on the Sister Cities Advisory Group? One nomination from Councillor Smith and a second nomination from Councillor Quain. Is there any others that would like to be on this group? Yeah, I've got you, Deputy Mayor. Yep, I've got you. We'll fill him in. Okay, great. Is somebody happy to move that they become our appointed members? Thank you, Councillor Kozis. Second by Councillor Ramesh. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you, councillors. 10.4.2, Councillor Gasser may have to leave the room. Thank you. So, councillors, there are 2 recommendations here. I might just ask the CEO, in terms of just from the executive point of view, is the way they're written as recommendation 1 and recommendation 2, is recommendation 1 the preferred model for the executive?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, recommendation 1 that we monitor and then request me to report back within 12 months would be the recommended option, but we did, as you said, put two options there for elected members to consider.
Sure. I'm happy to take either recommendation if somebody would like to move one. Councillor Kozisek? Sure, I'll take a question before I get on the table. Yep, absolutely.
Why we need to do a detailed design and feasibility study when I think there's a fairly simple solution there that's obvious without prolonging it if we felt that that was necessary. But that's a sort of a tag on to recommendation 1.
Yep. CEO, the process of why that would have to be undertaken?
Thank you. I don't have the technical detail to know about what the detailed design will be, but the construction certainly would be something we'd have to consider. I think the estimate that I had from staff was around up to 250,000 for that. So there will need to be some design and feasibility, as there is with any parking or road design work, but it's probably more the construction that would be the majority of the cost.
Recommendation 1,
One.
Councillor Cosset. Seconder, Councillor Quain. Is there likely to be any debate on this, councillors? So we are moving recommendation 1. So I might just scroll up to get the other one out of that. Thank you. We'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for that. And if we could just get Councillor Gassett, please. Thank you, staff members. Thank you. 10.4.3. We do have a deputation on this. I believe it was Alan. It was. Thank you. Alan, how are you? Welcome. Come and join us. Alan Cartledge, same deals apply, Alan. You have 10 minutes if you just introduce yourself, and suburb is fine. Thank you. Thanks, Al. Alan Cartledge, South Bunbury. I think that mic's on, Alan. Just maybe check that.
Oh, there we go. All right, we'll go again. Alan Cartledge of South Bunbury. Yeah, I'd just like to say good evening to the Mayor and the councillors. Thanks for having me here on this evening and take the opportunity to speak about Bunbury Hockey Association and its needs. Obviously, we've been here before to seek your support in regards to some funding, and unfortunately, the funding that didn't come available through sport development and cultural industries didn't come to fruition. They put it on hold, so that funding didn't come to play. So we had a sit down with Don Punch and also went through the South West Development Commission to try and get some funding through the state government on that behalf as well. Unfortunately, that was supposed to get an answer in November, then December, and then we finally got an answer in the middle of January, which was no. Unfortunately, we would have liked to have heard that information a lot earlier to try and get something proactive going, and obviously we've had some conversations with the city in regards to our needs and obviously where we've been. And just to give you an update, obviously what has happened, obviously we had a tornado go through Turf 2, which put us down to 1 turf, and then last year unfortunately Turf 1 failed. And also conversations with Tiger Turf, well, the company in particular, failed to get rectified the situation. They wanted to walk away with giving us some money, which was not going to be ideal for our hockey members and the community of Bunbury Hockey in general in the southwest, to make sure that we had a playable turf till 2030-ish. You know what I mean? So we're about 5 years short of where our turf should be. Also where our funding in regards to how we self-fund our own turf. Obviously we get a self-supporting loan from you guys, but we generally come up with the other half ourselves, but we're 5 years short of obviously saving that money. We've also had to unfortunately dip into our own savings to get the turf fixed. We knew it was a short-term solution, hoping for, to possibly get this year out of it as well. Because our members have gone through a bit of a tough time, obviously we had COVID, but then going down to 1 turf was a struggle for us. We lost a lot of monies obviously due to turf hire, games played. We also then had issues with volunteers, because of the way that hockey got spread out. So generally we would play on a Friday and Saturday. We were playing during the week, Friday, Saturday till 9 o'clock I think was our last game. And then Sunday morning we were starting at 9 and our last game was around 5:30, finishing about 7 to make this all work. So we invested $115,000 of our own money last year to get that turf back up and running. We did have some issues. The second company, which I'm happy to announce, which is Polytan, they were fantastic. They came back even after their initial round and probably should have charged us more, and were keen to make sure that we could play hockey, and spent another 9 days at their cost fixing our turf to get it to where we needed. And we had to make a decision to put a lot more cuts in the turf to try and get rid of the ripples that we had sustained from a faulty turf. So that got our season up and going. We've now got issues again with a few more ripples, which, obviously fingers crossed as always, you're trying to hope to get a little bit longer. Getting funds through our members is hard. We all, try and make it, whether it be rates or whatever it is, to make it as affordable as we can, so we can make sure that our members can play the sport and not turn people away because, costs are getting up there. So yeah, so obviously we sat down with Don, and he was helpful as best he could be. Southland Development Commission was, a little bit disappointing in the time frame it took to come back to us. So what we're seeking, obviously, is an arrangement. Before was a third between the three of us. Now, obviously, we're asking for 50%. Obviously, also increasing our self-supporting loan. Well, we've had self-supporting loans in the past and have never defaulted on a self-supporting loan. We obviously take this in great consideration, asking for this money, because we're not asking for the money going, oh, what happens if we can't pay it? That's not what we're about. We do look at our hockey as a business, because you unfortunately have to. You've got to be sustainable. And that's a big thing for the next 10 and 15 years, and probably since I've come on to the committee as president, is how do we just push a little bit further? Because we probably did stay a little bit behind in our fee structure and things to make it affordable, which has sort of caught us in the back loop a little bit in regards to trying to make it not too affordable, just affordable. But we've got to look at depreciation, assets, where we want to be in 10 or 15 years' time. So, yeah, so in a sense, we've basically come here not with our hand out. It's really to be working in conjunction to make sure that we offer hockey in the southwest. As you're aware, we have probably one of the biggest hockey carnivals, all carnivals in the southern hemisphere. Like, we have 142 teams come to Bunbury Hockey, which is quite impressive. Huge volunteer base that does that. There is obviously an opportunity, as you're aware, to have Thundersticks here, which is simply put like your Big Bash cricket. So I think if it's the easiest way to sort of think about it, which would be amazing for the community. Obviously to get spectators down to hockey, watching something, which is a pretty impressive sport in how we go with the Olympics. We've had great talent come out of the southwest, and we just want to create that opportunity that the southwest doesn't miss out. Okay, so our biggest issue is Turf 1 is probably the vibrancy of our hockey community. Turf 2, unfortunately, which it's not far, but it makes a huge difference for our spectators to hang around and watch the game, which is about 50 metres away, sort of thing, from our main premises, which is also away from our toilets, change rooms, and all facilities, essentially, sort of things. We actually have nothing on Turf 2 bar a sort of a makeshift shed for coverage for those winter days. Obviously we also sat down with Dave and had a good chat about where our finances are, and we have really looked at it seriously to make sure that we can come to the party in our repayments, but we also, as you're aware, would be in legal debate at the moment in regards to some funds which we will get access to. Those funds will purely go straight onto that self-supporting loan. So as soon as that comes in, that's where it will go. Now, the figure, I could say a figure, but how long's a piece of string, So we knocked back $115,000 from them. We have countered them with $560,000. So if we can meet somewhere in the middle, that would be ideal, but time will tell, and that's obviously with our legal department at the moment. And we would hope to have that rectified sometime this year. Again, I can't give you a date on that one. But in regards to if you do approve this funding, our self-supporting loan, and increasing your money as well, the company that we have engaged, which I think you guys also use on the athletics track, which is Polytam, they will start the process now, basically once or if we get approval from you guys, and delayed payment from their end. We will give them a small amount of money because we don't have a lot left to get the procedure away, which is about 35 grand, just to be upfront and honest. But they're happy to wait for payment as of July, which is the new financial year sort of thing. So really big from their behalf to sort of try and support us. They're a big advocate, obviously, of hockey. I think they're over in Hobart at the moment, because they do supply a lot of the premier turfs around Australia, among other things. So, yeah, I suppose the biggest thing is why I'm here is it really essential we get this second turf up. You might say we've got one turf, but we've lost members from the turnover last year. To go a third year would be disastrous for us, and also holding events for the community. Not only just the June Carnival, which is a big event. We actually hold schools We are the only two turfs, all turf, in the southwest in regards to the Bunbury Greater region. Obviously, no other shire has what we have, nor do they want to put one in. I have had conversations with all the outlying shires in regards to support a couple of years ago, probably pre the tornado, to be honest, to try and get our facility as a regional facility. None of them have vision to have a hockey stadium, you know what I mean? So unfortunately, it falls squarely on the Bunbury Council, and I really appreciate what you have done. You obviously helped with the lights, you know what I mean? But we have looked after ourselves for a long time. And unfortunately, yes, we are coming not for a handout, but just really to make sure that the sport and the Southwest community is sort of has the opportunity to play hockey and its community. It's not just playing sport. Sport is just a byproduct. I think the biggest thing is connection, and then just having healthy conversations around life in general, you know what I mean, that social aspect. But we lost that when we went to Turf 2 and didn't have Turf 1. So I think that's, look, I'm just asking for some support and your consideration basically to go hand in hand with making hockey viable, because, look, my biggest concern is if we don't get this and we lose more members, do we look at handing the facility back to the city? We don't want to do that. Like, it's not in our best interest. We obviously want to be able to in control of our facility, but it's getting to the point where we need a little bit of help to make sure that we can sustain ourselves a little bit longer, and we are looking long term. Okay, so we will increase a few things at a time, and it will be gradual. We're not going to, increase our fee structure hugely because we can't. But we are looking at our next 5-year plan of where we want to be in 10 and how we get there and how we sustain our turfs, our facilities. We had obviously an upgrade with our lights, which is sad.
You have passed that 10-minute mark, which is no, I'll give you a little bit extra time, so I'll just take it. They want to cut you off, and
No, obviously very
happy to
passionate.
close the meeting.
I thank you for your time. So, yep, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for on your committees. I took out of that the city had taken the lion's share again, as opposed to our neighbours, but that's what I took out of that. Thanks, Alan. Do we have a mover? There's an executive recommendation in front of us. Councillor Turner is moving. Councillor Quain seconding. Is there likely to be any debate from this? Questions?
Well, just in relation to the amount, the total that we've got written on the screen, 362,000, is that implementing the 50% or is that still out of the third?
No, so the initial council resolution that we made, whenever that was previously to, in principle, support this was the 240. So that was 240 from us, 240 from the Hockey Club and 240 from the state. It's been outlined through the CSRRF funding grants, which no longer or don't exist right now. So the additional amount there is the full amount. So basically each group picking up the extra 120,000 to cover that difference. But yeah, the total cost is 360. Oh, sorry, the total cost is 720. There was a question from Councillor Gassett first. Councillor Brook. Councillor Gassett was a question?
Yeah, sure. A question, Mr. Mayor. Just in relation to the turf. Previously, it's lasted 5 years. So do we have any undertaking from any proposed contractor of how long the new turf may last? What sort of warranty or guarantee? Is there any subrogation of liability?
Sure. I think again some nods over there, Councillor Gass. I will defer to the CEO if he wants to have a go, but it looks like there's someone keen to answer that.
Thanks, Mayor. We do have the Manager of Sport and Recreation, Dave Russell, here, so I'll ask Dave to answer that question.
Yeah, so through the Mayor, the warranty on the turf is 7 years for the synthetic turf surface itself and 5 years for the workmanship, and the club are hoping to get 10 to 15 years out of the turf. And inside the quote there's a small provisional amount that you will see just to put some extra reinforcing around the D of the turf, which is on either end, which is one of the most utilised parts of the turf. So by having that extra layer, it will mean that the life will be longer as well. So it's a really good return on investment for that small provisional amount.
Did you have a further question, Councillor Gass? Okay, Councillor Broad.
Thanks, Mayor. Actually, that was my question as well, the lifespan. But I do have another one about the usage, whether it's a heavy, standard or light usage.
CEO?
Again, I might get Mr Russell to answer that.
All right, so I'll answer that as best I can, given I'm not a hockey player. Obviously, it's predominantly a winter sport, so it's obviously getting most of its use during the winter and less in the summer. The turf is predominantly used on weekends for their fixtures. It is the largest club outside of Perth, so it's the biggest regional club in WA. So they do have in excess of 1,200 members altogether. So it's predominantly winter usage, but exactly the number of hours per week, I couldn't answer, but I'm sure Alan will be able to answer afterwards.
Yeah, and sorry, Alan, we can't get you to answer in this particular forum. Yeah, and not this, Alan, unless you know CEO. Follow-up question, Councillor Broad?
That's all, thanks.
That's good. Councillor Casson?
Just the budget for 2027. So we don't include that in the current budget. How do we anticipate to include it in the current budget? I guess it's going to be 2027, financial year end in 2027. And will that, bearing in mind some of us have a view to keep rates down, will that impact other projects or other cash flows where we intended to get the money from? What might be sacrificed for this?
Yeah, and I'll probably ask Theo to answer that, but I will just obviously note that this supports the allocation to that budget. So obviously it's instructing officers to prepare a budget with this included. As you know, we won't formally adopt the budget until such time in July, but the intent would then be, if this was supported, to make sure that is then included in terms of where that's coming from. CEO, are you able to respond to that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's similar. This is about supporting that, and so that we can include that in our budget deliberations. We've already included the 241 in there, so we've got the other 120 that we will need to add to that. We've got a whole budget process to go through and a lot of deliberations around that, so it's difficult to say whether that additional 120, what impact that will have. That we'll work that through as part of the budget process.
One for Councillor Gassam, yes.
So the possible payment from the contractor, I notice there's some legal implications there. How likely is that, and will that affect the actual overall requirement for the 725,000 overall project cost? And
yeah. I understand that's an agreement between the hockey club and that particular contractor, so it wouldn't impact us. Obviously, if they're able to receive some, then they may, that'll be a conversation that they have in terms of repaying their self-support loan, but it wouldn't impact the City of Bunbury in our contribution anyway, I wouldn't imagine, but I'll get confirmation from the CEO on that.
Thanks, Mayor. You are correct. It won't affect what we're trying to do here in terms of the council decision. The President has just outlined some of the legal parameters that they're working through, but that's still got to play out. If it's at the lower end, it will help. Certainly, if it's at the higher end, that's a much better outcome. But we've all been involved in legal negotiations, so we'll let that play out.
Follow-up question?
Just final one. Look, it's good to see there's skin in the game from the club, and just want to question these things so that we know what we're doing. We're very, going in with the eyes wide open.
Sure.
But it is good to see there's skin in the game.
I'll take that as a somewhat question, I guess. A skin in the game question mark. All right, we did have a mover for that. Sorry, can you maybe zoom out a touch? We've got the whole lot on there. A minute to take out. That looks good, I reckon. Yeah, that's good. So we moved by Councillor Turner and second by Councillor Quain. This does require an absolute majority, councillors. Is there likely to be any debate or any further debate? If that's the case, I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Alan. That motion is carried. Okay. Item 10.5.3. We do have a deputation, of course. Kim Chitsi. Kim, this is your time. Sorry, I had to leave you to last. Pick the first one. Pick the one with the least words on it. No, the floor is yours, Kim. As per others, you have 10 minutes. The recommendation. Yep, you can. I'll give you a bit of time to take your time.
Now, I don't know whether I need to go into the importance as a public health issue for soap in our public toilets again. I've been trying to battle this for 3 or 4 years, and I really think that it's time, considering that the compliance for this is the Health Act of 1911, then the Local Government Act of 1995, and the City of Bunbury Health local law was 2001, which is now 25 years ago. So I think it's really important that we get soap into our public toilets. I know that there has been considerable concern about the vandalism, and I know that to be a fact, but I do wonder why our particular issue is worse than Broome, Fitzroy Crossing, Hyde Park, and most other jurisdictions in Western Australia, that we can't cope with that. I thank the council for the recommendations for this to happen over 5 to 6 years. It's better than nothing. And I thank, I'm not sure who it came from, but the answers to my questions about the implementation of it, and I get that those high traffic areas, the public areas around the beach, those sorts of places are the most important to start with, and that we get the others done as quickly as possible. I just think that in this day and age, we can't get away with not having soap and being good educators for our public. It's not only important for tourists, for people who live here, and as I mentioned last time, if we can't provide facilities for our homeless, at least let them get soap in the toilets so that they can begin to maybe have better health outcomes. I think that's all that I need to say, because you all know how important soap is, and if you can consider this as an important item, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you very much. So, councillors, we do have that executive recommendation in front of us. Is somebody happy to move the recommendation? Councillor Quain, seconded by Councillor Broad. Is there likely to be any debate on this item? Councillor Casson? Questions or debate? Speak against? Sure. I'll ask the mover if they have anything to add first. Councillor Quain. Just microphone thing. Thank you. So we made it easier so people can hear you. You can at least turn them on. Thanks, Councillor Quain.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to not speak on this but support the motion.
Sure. You'll get the opportunity to close if you would like. Councillor Broad, as the seconder.
Thanks, Mayor. I did have a question about the cost for, and maybe that's an implementation cost, the reason why $195,000 has been placed in that first year. So perhaps, I wouldn't mind knowing a bit more information about that.
Sure. There is a response that was provided today, but I can ask the CEO to, it only came through this afternoon, I believe. That was after asked last week. But CEO, do you want to provide some indicative or response to that question?
Thank you, Mayor. There was a response that was provided today that identifies, and I think Ms Chitsy's also received all of that information, but that includes the year one cost of hire due to the front-loaded capital component. There's 34 installs across 10 locations, and in some cases there may well be some plumbing and other issues that we need to deal with. So again, that's the estimate. That's why the costs are greater in the first year. There is the priority locations have also been provided so that you can see that we are targeting the high profile.
Yes, thank you.
High usage areas.
Yep. Thank you.
So, Councillor Broad, as the second to that motion, or would you like to debate it? Nothing to add. Councillor Gasson.
Of course, yes.
It is your choice. You can remain standing if you like.
Yeah, I'll stand.
Sure.
And I'm not that tall anyway. Mr Mayor, although I'm speaking against it, probably not going to be very hard to get me to vote for it, but I do want to be able to be in a position to speak about the finances. You know, we're looking at an equivalent of about 0.3% of a rate rise to finances annually. And then at the end of it, it's going to be, over 6 years, close to $1 million. So, and we've just approved another motion about more funding. Just looking ahead with these things, taking the budget into consideration and the financial stress that's out there in the community, when these things come along, we really, you know, in my view, I need to look at what the community and ratepayers with a restricted rate base can afford to pay in their rates. So whilst I, you know, do support it, what I really want to say, look, my view is that if we support it, we should be looking at other savings, 150 grand, 200 grand per year, whether it's projects, the potential external funding or efficiencies. You know, there's only so much we can do, and to an extent, some people might say, do less but do it better. So we are not an unlimited funder. We have a lot of requests for funding, and things are going up, and the request for funding is going to actually increase. So I just want to bring it to Council's attention. Yes, we can support this, but I feel that we need to make sure, as part of our fiduciary duty, to keep costs down. So really, this is going to mean, to me, my view, not anyone else's, that we're going to have to sacrifice something elsewhere or produce some other funding some other way, whether it's revenue, new revenue, or cost efficiencies.
Thank you, Councillor Gassop. Is there a speaker for this motion? Councillor Turner?
Sorry, questions.
Question, sure.
Has anyone else, and if so, how many complaints have we had about not having soap supplied in our toilets? And also talked about the legislative issues. I mean, obviously, if we haven't had it in there, there isn't a legislative issue. Can someone verify that for me as well,
Yeah,
please?
CEO, have you got an answer for either or both of those questions, please?
I'm not, Mayor, thank you for the question. I'm not aware of the number of complaints that we've had in terms of not having soap or in our facilities. Clearly, you know, there is a benefit from people, you know, being able to properly wash and use soap, and so, but I'm not aware of the number of complaints that we've got. I'm not sure, there is obviously a Public Health Act, but obviously we haven't had, and there's a number of other councils that don't have it in their toilets as well. So whilst there is a Public Health Act, I don't think it mandates that we are required to do that, but I don't have any further information, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a speaker for the executive recommendation? Councillor Quain, to close.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to thank the councillors for considering this motion, and also the staff for their time and consideration on gathering all the information that we've can base our decisions on. Me personally, I do think that soap is very important in our, especially in our toilets that are facing toilets to the rest of the world, to the state, people that visit Bunbury. I think it's very important that we have soap in our toilets. So thank you, Council, for considering this motion.
Thank you. I'll put the executive recommendation as written. Those in favour, please indicate. Those against? That is carried unanimously. That motion becomes Council's motion. Congratulations to Ms Chitsey. That motion is now adopted. 10.5.4, so councillors, this has come to our attention, and those who are in the public may have the old agenda. The one online is also the old agenda. The new updated recommendation is as follows, and that is that notes the community concerns regarding pedestrian safety at the existing speed bump crossing on Strickland Street near Bunbury Forum. That note the additional pedestrian crossing point adjacent to Woodstock Village is not supported. So that's an additional pedestrian crossing. And that 3, request the CEO to engage with Main Roads Western Australia to investigate options for upgrading the existing crossing, including safer alternative treatments, and report back to Council by May 2026 or earlier if practical, with recommended actions and associated budget considerations for potential inclusion in the 2026-27 financial year. I'll just ask, given this has changed, I'll just ask the CEO to explain the rationale between this change, and then I'm happy to take questions before we get on the table. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. So following the ABF last week, there's obviously a fair bit of discussion in relation to this item, and I know some of the elected members have raised stuff directly with me or around potential changes or amendments to this, which the officers have looked at, and hence you've got a amended executive recommendation that we think addresses the issues that have been raised. Thank you.
Before I get on the table, given that there's a change, is there any questions before yes, Councillor Kozisek?
Yes, if I may. Point 2, note that an additional pedestrian crossing, blah, 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 is not supported. I thought we had established last week that there was no pedestrian crossing, so there can't be an additional pedestrian crossing. I think point 2 should be removed completely. Sorry, thank you. That wasn't really a question, it was a statement.
Yeah, I take it as a question as why is point 2 in there. I think the initial motion indicated something around an additional pedestrian crossing, so obviously that conversation between what's a pedestrian crossing, what isn't, what can be in the future is being discussed. So I understand, I'll just get the CEO to confirm that, but this is just closing that request out from that initial electors meeting motion. But CEO, if there's any further comment on that?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, point 2 is really just to close out the reference to the initial motion, and obviously the new point 3 is about investigating options for upgrading the existing crossings. So it's more just to reflect that.
Councillor Ramesh, you have a question?
Just a question, because I've driven past there twice, once in the evening and this afternoon as well. I just wondered, is there any possibility to add a signage as well, like older people crossing signage, along with what's upgraded plans are? And also the second question was adding a pelican lighting or something to warn, because the speed is considerable for the older person to cross the roads.
Yeah, so Councillor Ramesh, there's been a couple of additions to this, with including certain words and certain positions and what may or may not be included. I think through the talking with the CEO to include, make it quite broad, to include safer alternative treatments and report back to council will give council those considerations. Clearly this needs to be discussed with Main Roads and what can and can't go there. And obviously by allowing that conversation, and from what I understand, speaking with the initial motion raiser, he just wants to be part of the conversation to acknowledge that council are doing something. Obviously those options, including what can and can't happen, will need to be discussed with Main Roads and any budget considerations, hence why they will report back, and including it as safer alternative treatments will give potentially multiple options and how we consider that. But CEO, anything further to add on that?
No, thank you, Mayor. I think you've covered that pretty well. I think some of the issues around signage we can do relatively quickly, and we could do those outside of investigating the options with Main Roads. The lighting also are things that we're already looking at as we speak. Thanks.
Councillor Gassett.
Ask a couple of questions in case don't get the opportunity to speak. I'm just wondering, can we define what an expected crossing is going to look like? So in answer to my question earlier on, the city officers given us what the classification of that crossing is at the moment, the one that's raised, and that is called by the Main Roads an unmarked pedestrian crossing. So the inverse to that, I'm guessing, the question is a marked pedestrian crossing a proper crossing? And should that be what we should be going for?
Again, if I refer back to that previous answer, is about getting with Main Roads, getting those definitions, and then providing safer alternative treatments, which could have a range of those. It could be marked crossings, it could be potential crossing, an actual crosswalk, and getting that definition. So CEO, happy for you to provide any further response on on that. I don't know if we can provide a definition, but how you report back onto council on those
Yeah,
matters.
thank you, Mayor. I think you've covered that again. We'll work with Main Roads and on those definitions and then provide those options back. There is some stuff that we could probably do now, including, as I said, the signage and the lighting that we can look at almost immediately. Thanks.
Just the final question. A raised unmarked pedestrian crossing gives vehicles the right of way. That's what we have at the moment. And I'll ask the question, you do understand that's causing a lot of confusion amongst the residents of Woodstock and others and the vehicles that are driving. So on the flip side of that, would a raised marked pedestrian crossing give way to pedestrians, and should that be what we should be aiming for? So it's clear, and we're clear and concise, get rid of the confusion.
Council can make that final determination when a report comes back with the alternative safer treatments, which I'm assuming will outline those things. But I understand what your question you're asking, Councillor Gassab, and it is important, and that's why I think, obviously, that's why Council supports point 3, and the CEO can take all that in consideration and bring back options, and hopefully some of those that you've already suggested, alongside working with the residents nearby. A further question, Councillor Turner. So, all right, happy to get this on the table then. Is somebody happy to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Rames, seconded by Councillor Turner. Is there likely to be any debate on this item? I'll put that to those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Morris who moved that motion at the annual electors meeting, that's now carried, and I'm sure you'll be having some conversations, and if not beforehand, we'll see you in May. Thank you. Councillors, we have one item to go back to, which is item 10.3.1. This item has been requested to be dealt with behind closed doors. So for those who are here, I'll actually ask if somebody move that we can go behind closed doors on this item. Councillor Quain, seconded by Councillor Broad. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. So we just have this item to deal with in a confidential setting. So those who are joining us, those who are leaving us, please do so. And we'll invite you back to read the resolution. There's no more items after this, so if you have somewhere to go, feel free to leave. But if you want to find out the resolution, feel free to hang around. We'll go from there. Thank you for joining us. That's the first thing I was looking at. So as per the Local Government Act, I'm required to read what was decided behind closed doors, and that was this executive recommendation in front of us that had an amendment also added to that, which is now part of our executive recommendation, which was then carried unanimously. It was taken in two parts. So part one, which was carried unanimously and moved by Councillor Turner and second by Councillor Ramesh, was that appoint community representations Rebecca McKelville, Fiona Gordon, Michelle Glover, Bunbury Geograph Chamber and Commerce and Industry Representative Sean McGowan, and Bunbury Regional Entertainment Centre Representative Susanna Clark as members of the Bunbury Events Advisory Group. Part two was also carried unanimously, and that was that point A, appoint community representatives Peter Robbins, Jeff Hill, Kent Lyon and Hannah Paget, local business representations Clinton Mackery and Joanna Hitchcock, arts and culture representatives Isaac Slater, hospitality sector representative Liam Harris, Bunbury CBD Trades Association Megan Gianfrancisco, and Bunbury Geograph Chamber of Commerce and Industry Representative Sean McGowan as members of the SEER Bunbury Activation Advisory Group. And that part B was amend the terms of reference to the CBD Activation Advisory Group to include one additional community representation. So that was carried, and that is now the Councillor's executive recommendation. Thank you for rejoining us for that. That does bring us to a close of this meeting, so thank you for those who've come back to join us. I do declare this meeting closed. Thank you, elected members, and thank you to our staff. Thank you to those who have joined in. This meeting is now closed. Thank you. Right, need some signatures on here.